Let's have a look at the business entity types available in Singapore. Now, when we speak of business entity types, the types can be primarily classified into two categories. The first type being that of entities which are available only for Singapore citizens or Singapore permanent residents, and those are sole proprietorship, partnership, and limited liability partnership. And on the other side, we have another structure which can be used by both Singapore residents as well as foreigners. And that structure is of a company. Now, this company can be a private limited company or a public limited company. Either of the structure can be used both by residents as well as foreigners. Now, one thing here I want to highlight, if you check Accra website and check about sole proprietorship, partnership or limited liability partnership, you will notice they have mentioned that these structures can be created by foreigners. However, for this they need to appoint a local manager or a local authorized representative. So while law allows technically this being registered by foreigners, in practice, if you try to search for a person to act as a nominee representative or nominee manager for your partnership or sole proprietorship, you will not find anybody ready for this. Even the professional firms do not provide these services, and this is primarily because these structures have typically unlimited liability, and in case the foreigner is not contactable, that liability can reach to this manager or the authorized representative. So in a practical sense, for foreigners setting up these structures, it's quite difficult. Okay, so let's have a look on the first entity type, and that is sole proprietorship. As the name suggests, sole proprietorship is owned by a single owner. It's typically used for very small risk-free businesses. As far as independent existence, the entity does not have an independent existence. All the activities are actually happening in the name of the single owner only. The liability of the owner is unlimited. So, in case anything goes wrong in the business and if there is a significant debt, then the owner will have to pay from his own pocket. Cost to set up is quite low. You can register sole proprietorship for $100 and annual renewal cost is at 30 Singapore dollars. The compliance requirements are also very low. Sole proprietors are required to maintain accounts and file tax return in their personal name. But other than that, there are not many compliance requirements. When it comes to the taxation of the sole proprietorship, the tax return is filed by the individual owner in his own name and the personal tax rate applied to this. Moving on to the next slide, the next structure is of partnership. So partnership is not much different from sole proprietorship. It is primarily the same structure. However, here you have minimum 2 or more owners, and that is why it is called as partnership. Other than that, it does not have independent existence. Owner's liability is unlimited. The cost for setting up and renewal is same as that of sole proprietorship. Compliance requirements are low. Taxes are filed in individual owner's name. And again, this structure is generally used for very small and risk-free businesses. The next structure is of limited liability partnership. So this is kind of a mix of a company and a partnership. In this case, we again have minimum 2 or more owners, and that's why the word partnership. But the entity has an independent existence. So this entity can carry out business transactions in its own name, in the sense can rent the properties, own the properties, or maybe can institute a legal suit and can do anything a independent person can do. The owner's liability is limited in this case. So if anything goes wrong with the LLP, then it is not reaching, that liability is not reaching to the owners. The cost to set up and annual renewal cost is same as partnership, and the compliance requirements are medium. Again, when it comes to the taxation, the income of the LLP is taxed at the personal tax rate of the individual owner in his own capacity. These are the special types of entities, and generally these are used by doctors, lawyers, or chartered accountants. Normally, the professional people use this entity type for their business. And finally, we come to the most flexible structure, that is of a company. So here the ownership type is flexible. You can have one owner or you can have 10,000 owners, or the company can be even listed on a stock exchange with millions of people owning the shares. The company is an independent legal person and it has independent existence. The owner's liability is limited. Shareholders' risk is only limited to the amount of shareholding they have invested in the company. Cost to set up and annual renewal cost is slightly more at 300 Singapore dollars and 60 Singapore dollars for annual renewal. Compliance requirements are generally medium to high. Companies are required to maintain the books of accounts and file in certain cases. If the company is a public company or a listed company, then definitely it will have a significantly higher compliance. When it comes to the taxation of the income, company income is taxed at the corporate tax rate and it is not taxed in the hands of the shareholders when the dividend is distributed. So the use of this kind of structure is quite flexible. It can be used from many small businesses to very large and complex organizations. There are few more points which I will like to highlight. In case of a company, there is a separation of ownership and management. So shareholders are the owners and it is possible that they are not at all involved in the management of the company. And management is with some specific group of people who are called the directors. In many companies, obviously shareholders and management tends to be same, but separation is possible. The next point is, if there is a good offer, you can do partial equity divestment. For example, you can sell a specific percentage of stake to maybe a venture capitalist and raise the money for the expansion. Sale of an entire entity is also possible, and the entity remains live even after the death of the founder. So in summary, company is the most flexible form of entity available in Singapore. It is available for both foreigners as well as for residents. So if you are a foreigner and looking forward to set up your business in Singapore, then this form of entity is most suitable for you.
Thank you for watching this video. This video was brought to you by Epica Consulting Singapore. Subscribe to our channel today to get notified when new videos are posted.